Today on Upfront, close but not enough. Republicans try and fail to repeal Obamacare.
I will not sugarcoat this. This is a disappointing day for us. Doing big things is hard.
Speaker Ryan says Obamacare will remain the law of the land. Next, a Wisconsin lawmaker's dramatic personal story of how the Affordable Care Act touched his life. And a new push to toughen state OWI laws. The effort to make drunken drivers who cause fatal crashes serve more time.
Covering the issues important to Wisconsin. This is Upfront with Mike Goucher.
Hello again, everyone, and welcome to Upfront. It was not the start that House Speaker Paul Ryan had hoped for. With Republicans now controlling the White House and both houses of Congress, the Janesville Republican had hoped to move quickly to repeal and replace the Affordable Care Act, Obamacare as it's known. But Ryan ran into resistance, not only from Democrats, but from fellow Republicans in the House. The Speaker's bill to repeal and replace the nation's health care law was headed to a dramatic vote late Friday afternoon before Ryan pulled it. He didn't have the votes. President Trump supported the plan, which would have repealed large parts of Obamacare, including the insurance mandate, and replaced the Affordable Care Act subsidies with less generous tax credits. Ryan said Republicans will now move on to other issues.
We were a 10-year opposition party where being against things was easy to do. You just had to be against it. And now, in 3 months' time, we try to go to a governing party where we actually have to get 216 people to agree with each other on how we do things. And we weren't just quite there today. Obamacare is the law of the land. It's going to remain the law of the land until it's replaced. We did not have quite the votes to replace this law. And so, yeah, we're going to be living with Obamacare for the foreseeable future.
Ryan and Trump both predict an Obamacare death spiral. But not everyone agrees that will happen. A Wisconsin state lawmaker who has a personal story of Obamacare is pleased to see the law remain in place. Jimmy Anderson is a freshman Democratic lawmaker from Fitchburg. He uses a wheelchair since a serious car crash left him paralyzed 7 years ago. He supports the Affordable Care Act, and he joined me Friday, shortly before the GOP failed to act on its bill. You have a very personal experience with the Affordable Care Act. I'd like to begin today by having you describe what happened in your own life.
Yeah, just first, thanks for having me here, Mike.
You bet.
It all started back in 2010. I was visiting my family back home in California during the summer between my second and third years of law school. And we wanted to go out to celebrate my upcoming birthday. And shortly after leaving, a drunk driver hit us broadside at about 50 miles an hour. And I ended up losing my mom, my dad, and my little brother in the accident. And I ended up being paralyzed from the chest down. And it was, I had to put it, I don't know how else to put it, but it was the hardest thing that I'd ever had to go through.
Sure.
And so it was shortly after doctors managed to patch me up with, dozens of stitches and multiple surgeries and about a pound of steel in my spine to, make sure that my neck would be able to, I guess it took about a pound of steel to keep my neck from being able to, operate normal human life. Mm-hmm. But after that, my health insurance company told me that I was nearing my lifetime maximums and that I was going to have to handle the rest of my healthcare expenses. And with hundreds of thousands of dollars still left to go, I didn't know what I was going to do. I was scared. I was terrified. I was just a student. I didn't have that kind of money.
Sure.
And so it was a few days after that I got another letter from my health insurance company that said that the provisions of the Affordable Care Act have kicked in that got rid of those lifetime maximums. And, my wife and I were incredibly relieved.
You say the Affordable Care Act offered you a glimmer of hope, I think was the words you used at a hearing last week.
Yeah, absolutely. It was to be able to know that I was going to be able to get the care that I needed to kind of put my life back together. It really was. It was that glimmer of hope that I needed to keep going. And I was able to put my life back together. And I credit the Affordable Care Act for that.
So this is very personal for you. Give me your sense of, as we have this larger discussion about the repeal and replacement of the Affordable Care Act, Obamacare as some call it, what concerns you most?
Well, under Paul Ryan's bill, I think we're going to see, 24 million people kicked off their health insurance. And what that means is that there will be 24 million more people that could lose everything because of a sudden illness or a sudden accident. Those people, if they end up getting injured like I did, won't get the second chance that I was lucky enough to have.
So the argument you hear from Republicans and from some general citizens is that the Affordable Care Act is not sustainable as it's currently structured, that you see fewer and fewer providers out there, that you see costs continuing to grow, that something has to be done, that the current system is failing. Would you concede that there have to be changes in the Affordable Care Act in order, if it were to continue, to even survive?
Oh, absolutely, there need to be changes. I think even President Obama himself recognized that there need to be updates to the law to make it more equitable and provide more coverage opportunities, particularly for people in rural communities. I think was a place where there needs to be more focus. But when you look at the Republican health care plan, it's going to increase premiums. It's going to increase deductibles, and it says that it's not going to do anything to help those individuals that are most at risk under the current Affordable Care Act. So just hear that Republicans think that this bill is going to alleviate those problems, I think is false.
I want to change subjects here because in a couple of moments we're going to be talking to Representative Jim Ott, the Republican from Mequon, about his efforts to toughen drunken driving laws in this state. You told your story at the beginning of this interview about how a drunken driver affected you and your family. What does the state need to be doing to address this pretty large societal issue in the state of Wisconsin?
Right. It's Wisconsin in particular has a history and a culture with drinking, and sometimes that could be difficult to overcome at the Capitol. But there are people like Representative Ott that are trying to push the state in the right direction and address some of the, inequities is how I would describe it, between Wisconsin and other states when it comes to drunk driving legislation. I think that the most important thing that we could do is to make those first offense OWIs an actual penalty. Now, that doesn't mean putting people in prison. What it means is making sure that they're getting into the court system so that way they can get the help that they need and to stop them from doing it again. It's a more of a cultural signal than it is an actual punitive signal. So I think that we need to make sure that those first offense OWIs actually get prosecuted appropriately, get the people the help that they need, and make sure that our roads are safer.
Representative Jimmy Anderson is a Democrat from Fitchburg. We appreciate you being on the program. And as we mentioned, we'll be talking with Representative Ott here in just a moment. Representative, thanks very much for your time today. We appreciate it.
No, thank you so much for having me.
And as we just mentioned, there is a new effort in Madison to toughen drunken driving laws. A lawmaker says impaired drivers who cause fatal crashes should serve more time. We'll be talking with Representative Jim Ott when Up Front continues.
Up Front with Mike Goucher, brought to you by the American Transmission Company.